My name is Rosa Martinez. I'm 75 years old, and I still remember the sound of the doorbell that afternoon. It was 2005, and in Mexico City, a different kind of fear lingered in the air. It wasn't the usual fear of robberies or street crime. It was quieter, something that crept into conversations at the market, in bank lines, in the parks where the elderly sat to talk. People whispered that someone was killing old women. At first, it sounded like gossip, a neighborhood rumor. But the stories began repeating. A neighbor found lifeless in her living room, another in her bedroom, another in her kitchen. All of them elderly, all of them alone. All had opened the door to someone who arrived smiling, wearing an official government badge. The news called her a female killer, or maybe a man in disguise. The police sketches were blurry. Some said it was a stocky woman. Others insisted it had to be a man dressed as a nurse. No one knew the truth. Headlines screamed, "Another old lady killer murder." And that nickname became part of the city's collective fear. I lived in Colonia Moctezuma, in the Venustiano Carranza borough, a quiet neighborhood of old streets and low houses where everyone had known each other for decades. I was born there, married there, and stayed even after everyone else left. My children had moved to the United States years earlier, and my only company was a radio, and a canary that hardly sang anymore. Back then, old people like me were invisible. We lived off tiny pensions, selling food, sewing clothes, doing what we could. There wasn't yet a universal pension. We depended on neighbors' goodwill or government programs that promised help and rarely delivered. So, when someone knocked at your door offering assistance, you didn't think of danger. You thought of relief. That day, the afternoon sun glared off the metal roofs and tangled cables. It was around 3 o'clock when the doorbell rang. A woman's voice said she was from the government's senior support program. I opened the door. In front of me stood a stout woman with short dyed hair. She dressed neatly, carried a folder, and showed an ID badge with the logo of the National Institute for Older Adults. Her voice was firm, persuasive, and calm. She said it would only take a few minutes, just some questions. I invited her in. She sat on my worn-out sofa and started asking things. My full name, my age, whether I lived alone, if I had family nearby. I answered without worry. In those days, we still trusted people who claimed to be from the government. But after a few minutes, something felt wrong. Her eyes didn't move. They were hard, fixed, almost unblinking. When I mentioned that I lived alone, she smiled, just a small smile, but enough to make my stomach twist. I didn't have time to react. Suddenly, she stood up. I felt her shadow behind me, and before I could turn, something tightened around my neck. A cable. I tried to scream, but no sound came out. My hands clawed desperately at the cord. My legs kicked against the air. The sound of the television was the last thing I heard before collapsing. I don't know how long I was unconscious, seconds, maybe minutes, but something in me refused to die. I pushed, scratched, fought. My nails raked her face. The cable loosened just enough for me to breathe and scream. I screamed with everything I had left. She pulled away, furious, cursing. She threw the folder to the floor and ran. I think she heard the commotion outside and panicked. My screams echoed down the street. Neighbors came out. That's what saved me. They found me lying on the floor with the cable still wrapped around my neck. Someone called the police, then an ambulance. At the hospital, they told me I was seconds away from suffocating. When I was finally able to talk, I gave my statement. I told them it was a woman, strong, with short hair, dressed like a nurse or a social worker. But no one believed me. The officers looked at me with pity. They said it was probably a man in disguise, and that was it. Just another failed robbery case on paper. Days passed, and the killings continued. Every week, another headline. An elderly woman found strangled with a scarf, rope, or electrical cord. The investigators insisted the killer had to be a man. They even arrested innocent people, trans women, homeless individuals, anyone who vaguely fit the confused sketch. No one wanted to believe the murderer could be a woman. Weeks after my attack, one afternoon I turned on the TV and heard the news that stopped the country. They had caught the old lady killer. She'd been arrested in the act, leaving the home of her latest victim, an elderly woman named Anna Maria. The victim's son saw her leaving and alerted a nearby police officer. They chased her through the streets of Moctezuma, and that's where it ended. Her name was Juana Barraza. The moment I saw her face on television, I knew it was her. The same cold eyes, the same short hair, the same strong build. They said she had once been a professional wrestler, known in the 1990s as the Lady of Silence. After quitting wrestling, she worked as a street vendor and caregiver for the elderly, until something inside her broke forever. Experts said her rage came from her childhood. Her mother had abused her, had even given her away to a man when she was a girl. Juana grew to hate older women, seeing in them the reflection of the mother who destroyed her. That's why she attacked them. For years she fooled dozens of victims, showing fake credentials, pretending to fill out forms, and striking when they least expected it. She stole small things, jewelry, cash, appliances, but theft wasn't the motive. She wanted power. She wanted revenge. Newspapers claimed she might have killed more than 40 women. Police proved 16, but evidence suggested many more. I was later called to testify. They told me that my statement, the story of the old woman who survived in Venustiano Carranza, had helped confirm her pattern. In 2008, she was sentenced to 759 years in prison. A sentence symbolic rather than literal, but at least she was off the streets. At least no one else would open their door to her. Yet even after her arrest, the murders didn't stop. Over the following months, at least 3 elderly women were found dead under eerily similar circumstances. Inside their homes, no signs of robbery, same pattern of trust. Authorities said they were copycats. No one was ever caught. Juana Barraza still insists she wasn't the only one. From her cell in Santa Marta, Acatitla, she claims she was forced to confess, and that the real killers remain free. In 2024, she even tried to appeal her sentence, alleging she had been pressured during the investigation. Nearly 20 years later, the old lady killer remains a dark symbol of fear, injustice, and the biases that plague criminal investigations in Mexico, a case that forever changed how the country perceives loneliness and the vulnerability of its elderly. Today, I still live in the same house. The neighborhood doesn't sound the same anymore, but Colonia Moctezuma remains alive. Its streets busy, families returning. Still, the memory lingers. Juana Barraza no longer walks here, but her shadow endures in the collective memory of the neighborhood. My name is Rosa Martinez, and I survived to tell.